Hi guys, Arnold here from Arnold AGmUsic. I am so excited. Today's video is obviously just a continuation of the rest of the series. If you haven't watched the previous videos, you're going to be lost in this specific video because everything that I do builds on the previous video. I'm very excited about this one because I think Roland did a very nice job in having the Roland FA08 talk to the app on the iPad. And it absolutely makes me excited. There is one or two cons to the setup, which we'll obviously talk about as well. But I think for the most part, this is going to be a very nice setup for a lot of you guys. So here we go. Firstly, what we are going to do is set up everything in the FA. And then we're going to move over to the iPad. And then we're going to set it up in the iPad app. And then we take it from there. So if I take my church set, which we've built in the previous videos, before I use this studio set, I first want to create an empty tone. And it's going to make sense to you further down the line in this video, but just bear with me, just stick with me on this one. So what I'll do is I'll go to any PCMS sound and I'm going to go into Shift Tone Edit, and I am firstly going to take the acoustic piano and I'm going to switch off all the sound modules attached to it. So as you can hear, number 2 is selected. On this, what did I select? The 128 voice piano. If I do that, if I switch that off, there's no sound coming through. If I switch it on, there's sound, no sound. Sound, no sound. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to create a tone that I'm going to use purely for the purposes of sending MIDI to the iPad. I don't want it to generate sound in the FA. But in addition to that, if I didn't want it to create sound in the FA, I could have just turned down the volume of this tone or this part. But that's not sufficient, which you will see further down this video. Because even if the sound is at 0, it still eats up polyphony within the studio set. So it's better for you to turn off all the sound modules that might be activated for this specific tone, whichever one you choose, because you don't want it to use up any polyphony. We're creating this tone specifically just to send MIDI to the iPad. Once we've turned that off, everything is off. Now we can save this tone. Let's save it to, let's rename it iPad. I've already created iPad there, but I'll just write over it. Obviously because I tested this before I make the video. But I wrote over that, so what we've created now is the new iPad tone, right? So what we've done now is we've created a tone that doesn't generate any sound, as you can hear. I'm pressing, you can see here, I'm pressing. It doesn't create any sound, but it's going to send MIDI to wherever we want it to go, in this case, the iPad. So once we have saved that, we can go back to our church studio set, and now we can start editing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to write this studio set. I'm going to save this and call this studio set. Rename. I'm going to call this iPad studio set. I'm just going to say iPad SS, iPad Studio Set. So there, written. So what I've done was I've taken exactly that church studio set that we have, and we copied it and we renamed it iPad Studio Set. What I will then do is go down to 5 and put in the tone that we have created, the iPad tone, which is where? There we go. So this iPad tone I'm going to put down there. And if I activate it from the previous videos, you'll obviously see that we edited the layer and the splits of that specific part. And then let's do another one. Let's activate this one. Make that full. And also put the tone of the iPad there. Okay. And then we save it. So what we've done now is we've put the tone that doesn't generate anything. Okay. Oh, sorry. It's that one that's sounding. So what we've done was the empty tones we've put on channel 5 and 6. And obviously, once you understand the setup, you can obviously do as much as you want. But I'm just going to do 2 channels for the purposes of this video. You guys can do as many as you want. So number 5 and 6 doesn't generate any tones within the FA. It merely sends MIDI to the iPad, or that's going to be the intention. Right? So now that we've set up the studio set that we want and how we want it with our iPad tones or iPad channels within the studio set, we can move over to the iPad and set it up within the iPad. So this is my iPad. I'm going to open the Roland Canvas app. I bought this app on the App Store, from the App Store, I think for something like $20, if I'm not mistaken, $25. But I know it's definitely not more than $30. And this is a Roland app that has a lot of the Roland sounds that you actually have in your Roland FA, or similar sounds that they have as in this iOS version of the Roland app. As you can see, I'm not going to go through this app. There's other videos that explains to you the inner workings of this app. So I will suggest that you actually go and watch one of those. It's called the Roland Sound Canvas. So you can just YouTube it, and there's other YouTube videos that gives you an overview of how the app works. The purposes of this video is just to show you how this app can work with the Roland FA. So because I have made the channel 5 and 6, my iPad channels, where I've put the iPad tones, which doesn't generate anything within the FA, I have to go to channel 5 and 6 on the iPad as well, because that's the corresponding MIDI channels. So for everything else, I like to switch it off, which I'm doing now because I don't need it. So I'm switching everything off except channels 5 and 6. If you can hear already, and you can see there on the iPad, channels 5 and 6 keeps jumping. That's awesome. That's already sound from the iPad. Actually, not bad. Okay, but that sound is now layered with FA sounds. But let's go through this. So if you go through the app sounds, too many sounds, I'm not going to go through all of that. I'm just going to choose anything. Let's go maybe ensemble and choose... where's those nice strings? There was... oh, warm strings. Was it that? Woo! Listen to that. Listen to those sounds. That is absolutely awesome. So that is for strings, and if I go to this one, maybe I want to put a pad in there. Let's take a nice, oh, there's a warm pad as well. Back, let me put the strings off. Let's see. But too loud. Oh! And then I bring up the strings. More. So what have I now done? So these channels on the FA doesn't do anything. It's on, you can see the yellow ticks there, it's on, but it doesn't do anything in the FA. This only thing it does is send the MIDI information to the iPad, as you can see. Oh, that's beautiful. Guys, you can't tell me that that is not awesome. That is absolutely awesome. And I'm so excited about this. So excited. The only thing that you have to make sure is that the channels that you choose for your iPad channels in your studio set is the corresponding channels that you have activated on the iPad. You can then put any sound on the iPad sound module. As you can see here, they have lots and lots of sounds. Look at all those piano sounds. Look at those sounds. Look at those organ sounds. Look at those guitar sounds. It's absolutely, it's insane how many sounds this iPad app has. So the only thing you have to do is to make sure that where you put your iPad channels corresponds with the channels that you have activated in your iOS app. The only other FA setting that you have to make sure is correctly activated is if you go into Menu, System, you need to make sure that your USB driver is on generic MIDI only. That's the only other setting that you need to change in your Roland FA. But now, what does this mean? Having the iPad with the Roland sounds that's on the iOS app and using it with the Roland FA. One of the most significant advantages is that you now relieve the polyphony limits from the FA and you're actually splitting it with the iOS app. Instead of having that pad and the strings activated in your studio set here, which will then obviously eat up polyphony, you don't have it in the FA. It is now generated from the iOS app, which has its own limits and it has actually no polyphony limits. It's all dependent on how strong your iPad specs are, which will determine how much sounds it can handle. Now you can test this and you can go and put 8 iPad channels in here, or even 16 iPad channels, and see how far you can stretch the iOS app and see before you get notes dropping off or crackling sounds, etc. I am so excited about this because what does this mean? This means I can have more sounds in my studio set that I can use without having to worry about polyphony limits, and I can still play all the Roland sounds that I want. The layering and the split happens exactly the same. If I move, let me just put on the strings. There you can, the split works exactly the same. You can see now I've moved that. If I move it a little bit back, there it comes. The split on the FA works exactly the same as you would with any other sound in the FA. Also, you can now incorporate this in your keyboard switch group, your iPad channels in your keyboard switch groups. If you go to Pad Utility, go to, let's say, Group 1, and you edit that, you can now activate channels 5 and 6. There you can see I've activated channels 5 and 6 on my first group. I can go to Group 2 and edit that and activate channels 5 and 6. I exit. So now it means with my piano, let me just put those strings a little bit softer. If I switch over to my EP on keyboard switch group 2, keyboard switch group 2, the strings doesn't drop out. That is awesome. Now I want to switch over to my acoustic piano, so I select keyboard switch group 1. So that is absolutely awesome. It also means that if you have then keyboard switch groups that you use within the studio set, so make sure that you have the iPad channels always activated with whatever group you have, just to make sure that all the channels from the iOS app is always activated. So I would recommend that you use that for pad and strings, so that when you transition over to another main sound, like between acoustic piano and your electric piano, that the sounds that you have layered with that doesn't drop out, like these strings now. There's the strings. I'm switching over. The EP sound comes from the Roland FA. The acoustic piano comes from the Roland FA. But the strings and the pad is completely on the iOS app. Let me switch off bring out the strings a little, the pad a little bit. You can see how I switch between the switch groups, right? Guys, this is absolutely awesome. And like I say, the advantages is absolutely significant. You have more sounds at your disposal, and you are less worried about polyphony now. The layering and the splits work exactly the same as you would handle any other channel in the studio set. Now, unfortunately, there is two cons that I also don't like. I would have loved for the iOS sounds to also somehow come through the Roland FA, so that it goes out simultaneously through my main left and right outputs from the Roland FA. Unfortunately, the iPad doesn't recognize the FA08 as an audio interface. So what that means is you're going to have to use the headphone jack. So now you can use the headphone jack and plug it into the FA at the back. There's an audio source there, a mini jack, an 18th jack input that you can use. But I have found that it doesn't work nice. There's a little bit of an earth buzz that I get, so it doesn't work. So what that means is I have the iPad, I have a cable plugged into the iPad in the headphone jack of the iPad, and I have to send that separately through to the front of house, and then the Roland FA's channels also separately to the front of house. So now I actually have 4 channels which is not ideal. If you have a little mixer that you can mix the iPad sounds and the FA sounds before sending it to front of house, that obviously solves your problem. But I would have loved for the iPad to be able to have the sounds go through the FA so that I can only send those 2 channels of the FA to front of house. That is the one issue that I have with this setup, but you know, I can live with it. The other thing is there is a USB port at the back of the FA. I would have loved for that to be able to charge the iPad as well, which it does not, unfortunately, which is a bummer. That also means if you don't have the iPad fully charged, you're going to have to charge it via an alternative power source. I would have loved for the iPad to just be plugged into the USB port at the back of the FA, and it charges it, and all the sounds also comes through the FA so that I can only send main left and right channels out to the front of house. But you know, I think if you look at what Roland has done with the, what is that, the RD2000, where they have the DAW incorporation actually with the sliders, etc. I think that is Roland's strategy in any case, to make their hardware keyboards work much better and simultaneously with computers and iOS or iPads, etc., and tablets. Guys, I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about how I use my iPad with the Roland FA. This app is absolutely amazing. Like I say, there's a lot of duplication in terms of sounds that I already have in the FA that I now have on my iPad as well. And like I said, it cost me about $20 or $25. I can't remember. But the main advantages for me far outweighs the cons. I have no issues with polyphony. My layers and splits works exactly the same. And I have more sounds at my disposal that I can use to thicken up my sound. I mean, if you just listen to this, at the moment, I'm in keyboard switch group 1, which has that. And you can hear my bell is still there. This bell, which is, where is it? There, at channel 13. This bell, you can hear that, that's still there. And this pad is also still there. You can see it's on 15. The strings is off, it's on, but there's no sounds coming off because it's at 0. And the reason I don't need that, I can actually switch it off, is because I have my strings now coming from my iPad, and I have another pad coming from the iPad. So I can do this. Absolutely dreamy. Can you imagine what type of worship atmosphere you can create with this combination? I mean, with this heavenly sound, you can sing anything and it will sound like a worship song. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him below, they are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Oh, the Bible tells me so. Can you hear that thick, nice, luscious sound? Oh, awesome in any worship atmosphere. Thanks, guys. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like I say, if I have something unique and exciting to share with you, I always drop a video. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until the next time, peace out.